It's really the smell and the feeling that you get from a city. Similarly, every organization has that. So I'm like, I opened a gym asking them, come because you have a health problem, come and work out with me. They just went to the doctor because they got too scared.
Welcome to the Culture Edge podcast. Are you an entrepreneur or a change maker who's frustrated with the pace of change inside your organisation? Well, this show will, I hope, offer you valuable practical advice as you navigate your career. And our guests will also help you answer the question, am I better matched to the corporate world or to the startup world? My name is Stephen Parkins, and I'm determined to help people like you and your business build a strong, healthy culture of innovation. Today we're joined by a 2-times winner of the Toastmasters Challenge. He's also the author of the book Method in Madness. Our guest is Saby Sengupta. Alongside his work in innovation at ABN AMRO Bank, Saby is building a venture to help professionals and organizations manage the human side of change and transformation. Hi, Saby. It's great to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Steve. Hi.
Well, first of all, I remember the first time we met, I learned all about this new book that you released. And if I remember correctly, it had just come out. And Correct me if I'm wrong, it's called What's Your Plan B?
That's right. It's called What's Your Plan B? Yeah.
Yeah. So is that because you're in Plan A at the moment, or you're already on Plan B?
I am in Plan Z, but that's just me making tons of plans. No, I that's correct. But exactly when we met, I was pumping with energy with writing a new book, first book actually. It was more hectic and it took way more effort. Of course, this is pre-ChatGPT era, so I can take full credit to say everything was written by me from start to end. But it was a lot of work, but it was also very satisfying because the intention of the book was to be able to help others. And when every now and then there is someone who reads and writes me a message on LinkedIn or through my website that I'm in job transition or I'm not happy with what I'm doing, and I read your book. It really gave me that insight. It helped me rethink of my goals and everything. It does feel that's exactly why I wrote the book, and that's exactly the impact I wanted to create. Of course, I wanted to create with more people, but it's a gradual start.
Oh, that's great. Who is your book mostly aimed at then, and what pain are you hoping to take away for these people?
The pain, I think, is I have always flirted with that idea of people, not flirted, but like felt, suffered, and also instigated this pain of feeling stuck. And this is a very, it's like somebody has thrown you in a pool of gum. It's so sticky and you can't get out, and you have strength, you have belief, but it's something or the other that pulls you and holds you. The inspiration of the book was actually at work when I spoke to a colleague, and she said she and her husband worked there for 25 years, and her husband got fired, and now he's not old enough to go on pension, not young enough to start something new. And I by my guess, I guess they are in that age bracket of between 50 to 60, which is, I think, the most difficult age bracket to be in, because when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, you still have the energy. 50s is difficult, and I've seen my own father make a career transition from Unilever to insurance in 50s, and how much difficult it is to learn, unlearn, and relearn things, start from scratch. It's very difficult. I had that audience in mind. That was my primary audience, but I did try to make it generic, because as I was writing the book, COVID hit, and we saw the expected impact of COVID was that people are going to lose job. We saw with Booking.com and Airbnb, people getting fired left, right, center. So I tried to make it a little bit on that front as well, because that was quite the topic, that was burning topic at that point of time.
And do you think this problem of getting stuck, is that uniquely a corporate employment problem, or do you see that in other areas as well?
I think in every area, I think it's something that there with the startups, it's there with corporates. I think in corporates more visible, because I think you notice it, I think. And I think just because someone is busy and you're constantly running from pillar to post with your work, with your agenda, with your meetings, doesn't mean you're not stuck. You can be stuck even when you're busy. It's still a state of mind that you need to overcome with, and you can be stuck in various different things. That's the point. But the most common perception people have is like, because you're very busy, you cannot be stuck. Because you're a startup, you cannot be stuck. Because you're a scale up, you cannot be stuck. You can be stuck with anything and everything. It really depends on how you're handling it.
And so if we think about some of the leading indicators, or what would be seen as risk factors for people who are in employment, whether it's in a corporation or in a startup, what should people be on the lookout for to avoid getting stuck in the first place, do you think?
I think on a personal level, what I wrote on my book is there are three things that give you stimulation in your job. I think that's the thing you should check. First is the work and the output you produce. If that's what you feel it's draining, you're not getting energy from it, and doesn't mean sometimes something you do you're so good at, everybody praises you that wow, you're amazing, but that does not give you energy, and that drains you, that is creatively damaging you, then you're also getting in that zone of stuck. So it doesn't mean if you're good at it doesn't have that backfire. The second thing was the people that you work with. Sometimes it's the energy of the group that stimulates ideas, vision, also perspective. And the last is the leadership, not just the people you report to, but the organization as a whole, the company you're working for. If they are giving you the right tools, ammunition, the scope by which you can work on getting stuck and not stuck. I think that definitely, on a personal level, what is there. If you are in my current research, what I'm doing is how organizations sometimes and teams get stuck, and the three areas that through several interviews identified, and I'm working towards unstucking them if possible. Is first is teams that do not generate new ideas. They are just doing the same cookie cutter work for years, and they just don't know. They've done the reorganization, restructuring, but the old pattern still repeats, and they are not able to generate ideas, new fresh perspective, new way of doing things. Nothing comes there. The second thing is they get ideas, but they just don't know how to convert an idea into an action. There's a lot of talking, a lot of planning, but in the end, nothing sees the light of the day, and it's still in that stuck zone. And the last is everything is going smooth, things are going fine till a problem happens. The moment there is an unforeseen situation, a black swan event, or not even that extreme, something like unforeseen happens, then they just crumble. They just don't know how to pull themselves as a team, as a group out of that stuck feeling. So there's three areas I'm working on. The challenge is to often help people make people realize that they are stuck, because it is not a easy thing. Problems like this, 50% of the war is won when you can make a group or a team or a company realize that they have a problem. Sometimes they're just too self-delusional.
Yeah, it's a bit like training to stay fit. If you're fit, some people say, why do I need to train? And it's one, to stay fit, but it's also in preparation for things going wrong. And it's the best teams probably challenge themselves on that. And I imagine people who you think are very good are actually happier to be challenged compared to those who are maybe less good. That's my experience based in corporate and in startups.
And that's, now that you mentioned the health thing, I made a joke about it, that in the quest of making people aware that they have a problem being stuck, I realize every now and then I may have gone a little far or may not. One time this happened to me. I did a contact with the leadership. I mentioned them, listen, this is the problem. I made a whole analysis and I sent the document and everything. Later, I know they went to a big four consultancy to help them in that process. So I'm like, I opened a gym asking them, come because you have a health problem, come and work out with me. They just went to the doctor because they got too scared. So I'm still finding that balance, that people don't get so scared they run to the doctor, but they come to the gym. Every now and then the doctor will send them back to the gym, because that's where the real magic happens.
I really like the analogy. And if we zoom out a little bit, what would you say is the root cause, and what is going wrong fundamentally that motivates you and that makes you feel that there's a real problem to be solved here?
I think I really think sometimes people are just to like, especially when things are going great, people are really riding a high horse, and when things are going really bad, they're just being crybabies. And I mean, in my first 2 years of my corporate career, I've seen both the extremes. So the first extreme was in India in 2007. I was working for Lehman Brothers. Now, this was the time when people were riding the high horse, and we were thinking we creative because we had an offer. If you can automate a process, you can make your own job redundant and automate it. Not only you'll get hired to another team, you'll get an iPod. Now in 2007, iPod was a big thing, so we were like wow, it's and people would talk about these Wolf of Wall Street ambition and everything. When you point out there are more deeper causes that are causing friction, mistrust, and people are not feeling satisfied. People are, they're not doing what they're not reaching their potential. They're just I read this nice article that says the three roles we play in our organization: the prisoner, tourist, and player. The prisoner is the one who cries, the player is actually who does things, and the tourist is does enough but also keeps one foot out. But when with such over optimism, such opulence and bonuses and everything, you make people player. They're always keeping a foot out. If another company offers something more, they want to go. That was there, and then voila, it came crashing. And in my second year, after Lehman, I went to Credit Suisse. I worked there in for a few months in Singapore to migrate a process to India. And there I saw the other extreme where people were so resistant to teach us or give the work because they were insecure they're going to lose their work, lose their job. So this was also the confidence that they didn't have in the management, that when they are stuck, they will be given enough resources to move forward. So they were just clinging on to everything that's possible. So the root cause of this, the feeling of stuck, in my opinion, is the dynamic that an organization sets and the culture that organization sets with their reward system or with their decision. Sometimes they make them too optimistic that they just think there's never going to be a problem. I think post 2008 that has not really happened, or they make them so negative and so fearful that they think of any change, any movement as adversity, and want to resist it, want to push back it, want to fight it, as a result, making it worse and a vicious circle.
You're listening to the Culture Edge podcast. If you care about innovation and you want practical lessons for your career, you're in a great place with our entrepreneurially minded guests. Subscribe and be the first to know each time we release a new episode.
It reminds me of the greed and fear that you get in the markets. On the one hand, the very hubristic side of things, but then after the global financial crisis, we then went into extreme fear mode, it seems. Oh, that's really interesting. So how do you propose that we solve this then, Saby? What do you reckon individuals and organizations need to change? What needs to happen?
I think definitely the culture. One of the things I have worked with in one of the teams is I love these nice speeches and contents that there are on internet. I always use that as a framework. So one of the lectures I was from a Harvard professor about the smell of a city, that he talks about that how in France and Fontainebleau you want to go running, and in Kolkata in summer 40-degree you want to sleep. It's really the smell and the feeling that you get from a city. Similarly, every organization has that. When I worked with one of the companies I did in Belgium, what I did with them is every process, every announcement, every new measure that they did over the last year, I asked them to give the feeling that comes with it, and not to them, but to the group. How do you think people perceive it? And after a lot of introspection, they were able to realize that sometimes things that they say, sometimes things they communicate, things they ask people to do, the feeling they want to give and the feeling people get are completely different. And it is really their responsibility to give the right feeling. And it's sometimes just playfulness with wordings, or some changes here and there, little tweaks here and there, but they make a huge contrasting difference. I think that is definitely the step one, to know that how your team feels about how the decisions you're making. Only then can you create a culture of transformation. And when you have that, people will be able to get out of that stuck zone.
You talk about the culture. I mean, I think I've seen Steve's written on this quite a lot as well. I think it's always
Of course,
allowing.
we love this culture blogs. I love it. It's
Mhm.
every time, afternoon we get those blogs. It's like, wow. And sometimes it's like, yeah, I was just facing this problem. That's the moment, aha moment.
But I think it's also having the ability to fail. I mean, you don't have to be in a startup or in a big corporate. You just have to have a supportive environment. I get it. You can't just set fire to money and let it go. But I think how do you promote that in a sustainable manner? So what I mean is, you let people learn from their mistakes, but also make sure they don't repeat them. I think that's always the hardest part.
Yeah. And here's the thing, if it's done with true intent, it's not that difficult. So I once worked, and I mentioned this in my TEDx talk also last year, worked with a company that was where people were feeling frustrated. There was that feeling that, oh my God, we don't know what we're doing. We're just stuck in everything. But when we did a bit of root cause analysis and brainstorming, turns out it is so celebratory, It's like something happened, yay, let's call the ball of champagne, success, got a sales deal, got this, got that. It is so over optimistic, and these days I think there is this new thing, celebrating success, and that is taken to another extreme. And I'm all for celebrating success, by the way, but it should not be taken so extreme that there is no room for failure. There is no room to talk about when you're feeling stuck. And when you do feel stuck, it's like, yeah, put it under the carpet, because we want to celebrate, we want to share successes. So we what I proposed was like, we went through the days of the week when they have a Monday call where they share success, Thursday they do this, Friday they work from home. The only day available in the week was Tuesday, so I said, let's do a Tuesday, stuck up Tuesday. Every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, 15 minutes, 2 or 3 members tells where they got stuck last week and what was that they got stuck. And I checked a month later with the team, how did it go? And they were like, it was funny that people were like, the amount of time people get stuck, and you create an environment where people are comfortable talking about, yeah, I was stuck with this, I didn't know how to solve this, I was stuck with this problem, our group was stuck with this, is insightful. And you know that, okay, more people are facing, I'm not the only one.
So I think that's a really good practice that you just described there, Saby. Could you recommend to someone who's listening and would like to implement exactly what you just described, what would be the steps that they'd need to take to bring that into their organization, into their team?
I think the first step is definitely understanding the problem, why people are feeling stuck. I think it, like I said, it's you have to do an open discussion. Of course, it should not be a room with people constantly whining. Now, the problem to that step is, as solution givers, as problem solvers, we want to jump to problem. A friend of mine, Alex, once introduced me to this concept of a drama triangle, where there are three parties. It's a triangle where it's just exchange of emotions and no plan. So when somebody is complaining, they just want a safe space to complain. They're not asking for solution. So when you want to solve a problem, the first step is just listen, let that emotion, those things go out. Then comes the real problem that is up for solving. So let people have a safe environment to rant, talk about what's going on. Once that step is done, it's important to divide the group, those problems into groups. Like, why are people feeling stuck? Is it they're feeling stuck because they don't get any ideas, or because there's a problem that they don't know how to solve, or is it they're stuck because the management is not taking decisions quickly and efficiently? That's why they're waiting for days and weeks for the approval to come. Once the gap is identified, I think it makes easier to know what resources you need to solve this. If you're, for example, stuck with management not making decisions, you definitely need a salesman, a very yellow personality who can razzle dazzle their way through the management approval, who can sweet talk and charm and get through that. This is just an example. And then the fourth step would be to actually implement those changes and work towards it, and have a constant feedback and monitor it. What I've seen happens is the planning happens, but the first three steps of actually understanding the root cause, grouping the root cause in various stuck brackets, stuck with this, stuck with that, stuck with this, doesn't happen. we have a problem, let's jump to the solution, let's throw some money, let's solve it immediately. As I discussed, the Cobra effect, jumping too soon to solutions because you think throwing money is the only way to solve it, and that doesn't work.
Is this something that you like to help organizations and professionals with?
Definitely. I the funny thing is, Steve, I have been stuck many times. I have felt stuck quite a few times, and I'm very open to sharing this because I've been to a career coach complaining that I don't know what I want to do next. A few years back, I was like feeling, I think everybody tells me, oh, you're skilled, but we don't know how to use your skill, basically. One manager of mine told me that you have so many different creative things, we can't put you in a box, and that's why you don't fit in any boxes. And there are many people like that. So my coach told me, see yourself as a case study and see how a personality like you can be used for to better use. And I every day journaled my own experience, where I felt stuck and how I would have liked to get unstuck. That has actually helped me to make these steps. So everybody feels that way, a lot of people, and if you do, that's where I want to be of help, making teams more innovative, more ready for transformation, and get out of the stuck feeling.
So I think it's really interesting that you talk about all of this in the context of working for a large bank. I think people have the idea that banks are very bureaucratic, and obviously that is often the case. How do you find getting action done, either within the bank or maybe talk about it in other clients? Comparing the industries, it's very, very interesting, and I think people can be a bit defeatist on this. And I think the fact that you're doing this externally, almost preparing yourself for if you do get stuck, you're going to have that momentum behind you to push through the road becoming gummy ahead. And I've got a couple of other jobs that I do. I'm not anticipating getting stuck. I just like to keep busy. I find it very interesting when people are working in big corporates, because now that's the one sort of gap in inverted commas I have. I don't work in a big corporate. I've got several startups. I work with an educational company. So how do you balance that, because you're going from tiny startup to mega corporate?
Yes, I think large corporates, banks, have those underbellies of being bureaucratic. However, there is, and I think in many companies, an intent to help people to make a difference. I can say very proudly, and that I am right now in a program called Career Switch, where I work 50% with the bank and 50% to set up my own business. That is the painless way of taking a risk to build something for 2 years. And I think 2 years is enough time to know in your heart and in your bank balance if the idea is going to work out or not. So yes, there is bureaucracy, but that's also has to do with a lot of other factors, with regulation, perceptions. Every part of the organization functions differently. There are more bureaucratic parts, and there are parts that are where things happen, where things can be done differently, where things are innovation is encouraged, challenging the status quo is encouraged. So I think that is one advantage. Also disadvantage, because there are certain parts that are more bureaucratic. So it really depends on where you end up. And I think I really believe in that your vibe attracts your tribe. So if you are the person with energy and the zeal to do difference, even in a bureaucratic organization, you will find the place where you can make a difference. That's really what I think.
Speaking of your vibe, Saby, we're going to have to wrap up in just a sec. You're clearly an inspiring speaker, and I always enjoy listening to your stories and anecdotes. If some of our listeners today would like to reach out to you, what would be the best channels to do that?
Of course, LinkedIn is I think the best medium these days. I think I generally love to connect with people on LinkedIn, meet new people. I think I connected to Steve through LinkedIn. Not many people know. I saw a beautifully written message on LinkedIn, and I was like, wow, I need to know this person. So definitely LinkedIn.
Great. And you have a website as well, right, where we can reach out if need be?
Yes, methodim.com.
Super. We'll be sure to have a link in the description below. Super. Well, I'd like to say a big thank you, Saby. Been a real pleasure speaking with you, and thanks for all your great advice on this complex topic.
Thank you so much. It was really great talking to both of you. Thank you.
Thanks, Saby. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this episode of the Culture Edge podcast. As you heard just now, our guests are a highly diverse group of entrepreneurs and innovators, each with fantastic experience in both the corporate world and the startup world. So subscribe to the Culture Edge podcast today and join us again for more practical advice for your career and your impact in innovation.